mean, this was Neil Young's idea that I loved the most, which is just that you get to commune with the artist. You know, it becomes a full experience where, I mean, that's the romance that he's championing more than actual sound quality or bits or sampling rate or those sorts of things. It's the idea that you are kind of enveloped by the art of the, you know, you completely have this total intimate experience with the source material, with the artist. And that's what I like about high res sound, is that sensation of being of no distance, of total intimacy. But I always feel uncomfortable talking about this because I know it's like the most boring topic for most people. You know.
You're literally a music producer, so you know I think there's a certain level of expectation there. And what I would say, I actually write about technology. I work for TechCrunch. That's my main job, and that's so like I'm, you know, that's why I'm super familiar with all the different players. And I don't think that it's so much that people don't care about sound quality. I just think it's that at this point, people are willing to prioritize convenience over anything else.
Yeah, but that's the oldest story in the book. That's like an ancient. That's the thing. Yes, convenience. I get it. You know, but for someone like me who like lives, you know, kind of lives within. I mean, I live inside of. I mean, I'm trying to say this in a way that won't be too pretentious, but I live inside of songs. Like I don't want to sound either creepy or pretentious, but like it's almost like a religion for me, you know. And I really care about it a lot. I care about everything that I do as an artist, and I care about sound as a listener. And I'm very, very passionate about it. And it's painful to me to have people just say, well, yeah, but this is more, you know, convenience always wins out. And I think that was what Neil Young was trying to do. I think his messaging was a little off-putting and kind of fanatical. And he didn't have enough of a sense of, humility about coming off like a dork, like I'm coming off right now, you know. I think that was what went wrong, is that he sounded sort of fanatical in a way that people couldn't really relate to. But it is dismaying that, you know, the things that I care about are always prioritized under convenience, you know. I mean, it's the nature of, and, you know, also I'm not paid for streaming, you know. It's kind of this, the 21st century is an amazing kind of, it's been a 25-year insult to my entire existence in a funny kind of way.
That's sort of like the beauty of Neil Young, though, is that like he's past the point of caring. I think what anybody thinks about him at this point.
I think that's true. I think that's what went wrong, though, with Pono. I love the guy, but I think it's clearly failed on his personality. That's my opinion.
My take on it was, you know, one, obviously the price of buying a standalone player versus everybody just kind of listens to everything on their smartphone now. And also the idea of subscribing to a new or different service expressly for lossless audio, I think is just a step too far for most people.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I mean, I fully understand why it has not worked so far. Yeah, I totally get it.
Potentially good news. I mean, you know, Spotify is probably not going lossless anytime soon, but Apple has been taking some steps in that direction.
That is true.
And they do pay you slightly more fractions of a cent per stream.
they do. That is true. I mean, it is do you know have you had John Vanderslice on your show?
Oh yeah, many times.
Yeah, I mean, his attitude towards it is really great. Towards this whole topic is really great. John is a genius, I think, and also a little insane.
He's also one of the mellowest dudes alive.
Yes. He is super mellow, but he's also like, he's got that sort of like the kind of genius, which is a little touch of madness.
Well, yeah. I mean, for those people who don't, I mean, beyond the music making, he is also the owner and proprietor of Tiny Telephone, which, at least at a certain point, was the only pure analog recording studio on the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, John and I share a lot of values, and I love him a lot, and I care about him a lot, and I would say he's an influence on me, at least in terms of value system. And his attitude about streaming was like, it's literally futile. It is completely futile to think like it's never going to be a way that you're going to be remunerated in any kind of way that is significant at all. It's why I tell people I don't get paid for streaming. And then people want to get very specific about, wait, you don't get paid or you get paid very little? And I'm trying to imagine in your job for TechCrunch, if you had a paycheck that was down to, like where it's like you get paid multiple fractions of a penny that almost accumulate to a penny, you would call that I'm not paid, right?
You feel like it's a moot point.
Yeah, it's a moot point. So I feel like it's actually better and more simpler and more communicative when I'm talking to people who are not musicians to say simply that Spotify does not pay. It's almost exactly true. And John's attitude, he was really at peace with it. He said his thing is, I put value into the analog works, into the vinyl things that he sells, into the physical things, and those things are worth money, and he puts great care into them. If you buy a John Vanderslice LP, he has put a lot of attention into every part of that process and a lot of care. In terms of streaming, he doesn't give a fuck. He's sort of like, oh, it's fine. And he's not bitter about it. He's really just accepted it. It's, I want to get to that kind of level of sort of spiritual magnanimity, but I'm not quite there.
John is obviously a singular and fairly idiosyncratic figure in a lot of ways. And, one of them right now is that he's back on his living room tour thing right now. And that's fascinating for me. I mean, the first time I saw him was, I can't remember which venue, some big venue in San Francisco. He was opening up for Beulah, if you remember Beulah. And, it was a production, right? It was when the Life and Death of an American Four Tracker came out. It was still full bands, we're going to do this. We're going to be real rock and roll bands. And I obviously I really appreciate the living room show idea. And, I lived at a house, at a show house in college, I understand how important that culture is, but I just can't wrap my brain around the economics of doing it, especially at this point in his career.
I mean, I think that in a way, John's kind of surrendered in a certain kind of way. I mean, I feel like there's a little bit, the way that he's always talked about streaming has always had this kind of just coming to terms with the just pure despair of it. And still loving what he's doing. I don't know if you've been following his most recent music, but it's becoming more increasingly antagonistic and bizarre.
Yeah, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he's also taken some interesting... he makes some interesting meme choices over on Facebook as well.
Yeah, he's really it's kind of the part of him that's kind of punk in a way. He's sort of fuck off. I don't, there's almost a kind of nihilism to it. As friendly and as charming and as warm and as sweet as he is, there's a kind of dark, nihilistic punk kind of fuck off kind of attitude that underlies a lot of the stuff.
And I don't think that in this case, in this instance, those things are at all mutually exclusive because, I read, I follow the way he interacts with the world. And, I think it's something that, given our druthers, we would all kind of like to do, so we can appreciate that about him.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's clear. I have nothing but admiration for the guy.
No, of course.
And he's truly an inspiring free spirit and a very, very smart guy. And I really love the way his music is. I mean, my favorite record is The Cedars, which came out a few years ago. It's a really, really out there record, but it's still very musical and very pleasant and sort of seductive. The new music that he's been doing for the last couple of years has been, I think, deliberately grating in a kind of a cool way, in a kind of a neon sort of druggy sort of I don't know how to describe it, provocative, sort of challenging, difficult sort of way, and I respect that. I mean, I'm from the DC punk scene. I understand confrontational art, and I value it. But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know how the economics work for John. I think he's sort of accepted that this is the way the world's going, and I just want to, go and breathe the air and play songs and just, try to put it together.
Certainly we'll talk about some of your troubles with touring and, especially going forward. But I think we can all appreciate what something like a house show affords you as an artist. Like that's a true connection with fans that you don't get on a larger scale.
It's the best. It's the best. It's a really, really, I mean, again, there's that word intimacy. It's like the thing that I love. If you go see Mark Eitzel in a living room show, you're going to have a life-changing experience. I mean, and it's like concentrated and intense in a way that, the last big show that I saw was Massive Attack. And I saw Massive Attack here at a big place called The Anthem, which is owned by Seth Hurwitz, who owns the 930 Club. It's like the bigger version of the 930 Club. And it was a really big show with a really big sort of cinematic scope, and it wouldn't have what they were doing. It would be sort of absurd for Massive Attack to play a house, but what they're doing wouldn't have worked in a smaller venue. Like they made an art of their circumstance of being in a larger venue, and I respect that too. But I think there's a thing that John and people like John and Mark Eitzel, the people that I have seen at house shows, make use of, which is very potent and very really strong. I mean, really valuable.
There's an additional value to it that I hadn't considered before. I'm a fairly introverted person in a lot of ways. Like, I can do this, it's fine. I can like stand on a stage and I interviewed Draymond Green last year in front of like 1,000 people. Totally fine. But if I go to a party and I don't know anybody, I'm the guy in the corner, not talking to anybody and doing the quiet exit. What a house show does, and this was one of the things I really loved about it, in college when I was in that world because I had to be, because I lived in that house, is it's suddenly, here's a group of people, we're all here for the same reason, and we all have a shared interest. And there's a way to connect with people that is obviously really lost, like certainly during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely valuable, and more people should go to them. I think it's if you learn of one happening, I mean, this is me talking to the listener. If you learn of one happening in your town, or go. It's really exciting and worthwhile.
Not at all important if you've ever heard of the band before. In fact, probably better if you haven't.
I mean, I think I have not experienced a band that I don't know in a living room show, but certainly if you're gonna commune with artists who are as strong and as singular as as John Vanderslice, a house show is a real treat, and it's something you're going to remember pretty much for the rest of your life, I think.
I'm going to age myself here, but I discovered Frog Eyes because they played at my house. I discovered Devendra Banhart because, he played at a house. And it's really, there's something incredibly beautiful about that. And there's a connection that you don't necessarily have when that person is an opening band in a larger venue, because, energy's not always there. They know people are showing up late. They know people are showing up there for a different reason. But if you're at a house show and there's 10 people there, that's not a problem. That's actually kind of the point.
Yeah. I come from, again, the DC punk, kind of social milieu. And so I don't think of smaller, more intimate things as lesser than big time commercial things. I don't assign those values. So it's not like I don't even feel the need to apologize for the idea that I'm encouraging someone to do, to play or to go to attend a house show. I think they're great. Yeah. That's my take on it.
We're going to cycle back around to the economic things, and I appreciate that you're very transparent about it. Like, not everybody likes to talk about it, and I can appreciate that, right? It's not,
There's no question.
Well, it's a painful issue, but I bring it up again in the context of what does touring look like for you going forward, or have you figured that out?
Okay, so my for people who are listening to this that don't know who I am or don't know my history, I about 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, no, more than 10 years ago, God, I got a virus that went into my heart. Nobody knows where the virus came from. I will never know. In fact, doctors specifically discouraged me from wondering about it. They said, there's really no point because it doesn't matter where it came from. All you know
it's really easy to spiral too.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It is. And so I try not to think about it, but I got this very bizarre and unusual, sort of anomalous virus that went into my heart. This is a very rare occurrence. This is something that almost never happens, and probably you don't know anybody else who it's happened to. It's pretty rare. Getting an infection in your heart is very unusual. Like, people get infections in their lungs, they get infections in their kidneys, in their, different organs of the body that are usually subject to attack by virus or bacteria. But the heart is rarely reached by an infection. And actually the body has no design really to respond to it because it's so rare. It almost never, by the nature of the way your blood works and the way your blood is filtered, and the heart almost never gets an infection. So when it does, it's usually very, very swiftly fatal. And very few people survive it. Usually what happens is you die in about 48, 72 hours. What happened to me, was, basically my symptoms were initially, I had were very flu-like, were very, it was like a really severe cold, that came on out of nowhere, and was really extreme and really like the worst flu you've ever had. Like, multiply it by 3 or whatever. It's like it was very. And I was lying on the couch, and I just thought, oh man, I really have some kind of terrible bug or whatever. I didn't know what was happening to me. I now know that I had an infection in the core of my being, basically. And so my body was freaking out. And I was blowing my nose and my eyes were watering, and it was a nightmare. Anyway, I went to a doctor, and my doctor said, and what happened actually was this flu, I'm putting in quotes, cleared up very quickly. Like, out of the blue, it went away. And like, I was all better like the next day. It was very weird. And I went to the doctor.
Did you have insurance at the time?
I did, yes. Thankfully, I mean, I would definitely be dead, 100% be dead if I did not have insurance. The way this country is structured, people like me are would just be totally forgotten. I mean, there's no way. So thankfully I was insured.
For most of us, you're not insured. You just don't go to a doctor, right? Especially in the case where, and this is what I'm wondering, in the case where you're fine the next day, what compelled you to go see a doctor?
It was very bizarre. I mean, that it was just like there was no question to me that I'd just gone through something very weird. I mean, it was so extreme, and then it was like, oh, birds are tweeting, and everything is fine.
So it was a really quick recovery. Was actually part of what made it so strange.
Yeah, it was. It was a spooky recovery. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like, why am I felt like shit yesterday. Why do I feel better now? This is very weird. I don't know what the hell just happened. I went to the doctor. And my doctor, who I still actually thank, this person saved my life. This woman saved my life. She was putting a stethoscope up to my chest, and she said, "You have a heart murmur, and you've never had a heart murmur before. And you just had this really bad sort of flu thing." She's like, what I'm worried about is very rare and very unlikely, but I think you should go to the hospital right now. And I was like, and she's like right now, like leave and drive right to the hospital. Because I think this is an emergency. And she was right. She was 100% right. And I ended up having a very intense surgery, open heart surgery out of the blue from this weird virus that went into my heart. You know, I've had major heart problems, but it's not like I eat a lot of pizza or like like the things that people associate with heart troubles, like heart disease. That's not the case for me. So I got this surgery, open heart surgery, and it saved my life. And I later had to have another open heart surgery, which installed a device that was essentially replaced my heart with a machine. So I had essentially an artificial heart. And Beauty Pill actually played a few shows with me having this artificial heart. And when I would step out on stage, I would tell people, I would try to make people feel less uncomfortable. I would make a joke that I was like a cyborg, or like I was like a half man, half machine kind of thing. But yeah, I had an artificial heart for a long time. And last year, I'm zooming through all this life detail.
You know, reading up on it, a really interesting facet was that there was an issue with putting your guitar next to it, right? Or did it amplify sound, or?
No, it was really hard to carry a guitar. Like heart surgery, in order to do heart surgery, I'm sorry for anybody that's listening to this. This unfortunately is gruesome. They crack your rib cage open like you're a crab. That's the best way I've found to describe it in a way that people can visualize it.
It's very visceral.
It's really nasty, and it's like it feels like you've been hit by a truck. Almost literally. And your chest, your pectoral muscles are challenged by this, and everything that you used to do becomes very difficult to do. And for me, I was a guitarist. I am a guitarist. Guitar became very challenging. So I actually got more into electronic music because that was more physically accessible to me. And that's actually something that affected the way Beauty Pill sounds, in a way that I'm really happy with, to be honest with you. I would not go back and wish myself to have, a virus go into my heart, but I'm happy with Beauty Pill's music, and I'm happy with the things that we've been exploring artistically, as a result.
You couldn't have seen yourself necessarily going in that direction without this horrible thing.
I mean, I've always been interested in sound. I'm a very big Beatles fan. I'm very interested I've always been excited about sound and stereo and texture. I love later period Beatles stuff for these reasons. I love hip hop for these reasons. I'm a huge, devoted fan of De La Soul. So I don't know that it's entirely, these are things that I had a little bit of interest in, but they became things that became, the electronic stuff became necessary to really communicate songs and feelings, which is what I do. so I don't. It's not. There's sampling. There's electronic treatments and earlier beauty pill stuff. It just becomes more at the core of what we do later on. And I'm proud of the work. So it's my journey is a tricky one, I guess. But anyway, so last year I have this artificial heart, and suddenly it begins to fail. I was actually I was on the way to my studio. I have a home studio, and I was walking to my home studio, and I collapsed, and I passed out of nowhere, and I didn't know what was happening, and I woke up, and my dog, my poor dog, was very confused, and I woke up with my dog's face right looking at me, very concerned.
You have to be extra vigilant, obviously, when you've got that situation.
Yes, it's true. That's true. That's true. That's exactly true. And I have a group text. I am on a group. I'm not going to name drop, but I'm on a group text with some amazing musicians, and who I like a lot. And we kind of text every day. It's like one of those sort of channels, I guess. And I texted those guys. And I said, "Hey, funny thing, I just passed out on the way walking into the studio. I didn't know what I didn't know. I was like, huh, weird thing happened." And there was like silence in this text channel, and these are very chatty people, and there was like nobody responded, and I was like, well, anyway. Have a good day,
I'm sure my mechanical heart is perfectly fine.
I was told, that really was my stance. It really was, like, as insane as it sounds now. I was really like, oh, I just passed out for no reason. I don't know why that was. Anyway, talk to you later. And they were, two of them actually were very insistent. Chad, you need to get to the hospital right now. Like, don't delay. Let's not fuck around. This is passing out for no reason is not okay, And I was like, nah, I'm fine. I'll be fine. And then my friend Ryan, actually, who I will name, my friend Ryan, said, "You're on the couch. Can you move?" And I said. And I actually tried to get up off the couch, and I realized I could not get up off the couch. I was not able to move. I hadn't noticed it until this moment. And I said, no, I'm just going to sit here and drink some water. I'm sure I'll be fine. And Ryan was like, no, Chad, I'm not accepting that answer, and you're going to the hospital. And my other friend insisted that he was going to drive over and take me to the hospital. I ended up getting a heart transplant. So I now have someone else's heart. And I don't know anything about this person, except I do know that it's a woman. And I'm very, very grateful to be alive, and I'm grateful to her. And I'm kind of astounded to even exist, to be honest with you. And I'm planning, right now, just actually right before I started talking to you, I'm planning a new album this coming summer that I can't believe I'm even alive for. And we're going to collaborate with Arto Lindsay as a producer, someone I've admired very intensely for a long time. So yeah, I feel very grateful to be alive. But in terms of playing live, here's my situation.
I'm very impressed, by the way, that you have that thread still.
Yeah. Yes. But I do want to answer the question, because it is an actually important and good question. My situation is, I am immunocompromised, because I have this other person's heart. They don't want me to have what's called organ rejection, which is very dangerous which is a very gruesome way to die. And I don't want to die that way. And if I can avoid it. And I am taking very complex and a lot of medications in order to stay alive and keep this heart healthy. And so in the age of COVID and monkeypox and whatever the fuck, it's really challenging for me to play live going forward. Beauty Pill has moved into a different zone artistically, I would say. We now have a horn quartet. We've added a horn quartet. There's a quintet band. There's a band that's a quintet, rock quintet, and we've added 4 people who play horns, who play saxophone and bassoon and trumpet. And our arrangements are getting more.
This is funny to me because do you remember that that Onion article from a long time ago that was like it was like ska band outnumbers audience? Like it's one of these things where you're sort of in this position where obviously like you have to start thinking of like, as they call it in business, like the unit economics of something. You have to think about because you don't have that streaming revenue, as we very much talked about at the beginning of the conversation, and on the way to that, you're like, let's add some horn players. Like, let's get like more people.
I mean, it's a fucked up thing. Like, I'm an artist, man. I don't have, sort of like what I was saying about John earlier. Like, you kind of are compelled. I started hearing these things in my head, horns and horn textures in my head. Not that different, not that far off from, maybe Mingus or Philip Glass, like not horns in a kind of a old fashioned Otis Redding sort of way, but or a ska sort of way, as you would say. But I started hearing these sounds in my head, and it's very clear that there's ways to get at these things electronically cheaper, but the sound of real people playing instruments that they've devoted their lives to is just so moving. And it's just, it's not something I want to replace. So, or I want to put to the side. I'm a little bit obsessive about what I'm doing. So you're right about the economics making no damn sense whatsoever. But I don't know what to say. It's like, it's the vision, and I have no choice but to answer it.
When you say, not wanting to replace it, are you talking about the studio, or are you just talking about everything?
Well, we're going into a record. I actually had a really good conversation with my bandmate Devin Ocampo, who is the drummer in the band, but is actually probably most famous as a guitarist. He's one of those people who can play any instrument. He's just one of those, like, just insanely gifted, it's annoyingly gifted people who, if you handed Devin, a clarinet that he'd never played before, probably within an hour or two, he'd sound pretty good at it. He's just one of those people. He's a really key kind of cinematographer, I would say, in Beauty Pill. He's a very important to the mechanics and to the arrangements and to the way everything gets resolved, I guess, the way the songs resolve. And we were talking about, how challenging it is going to be for Beauty Pill to play live going forward because of me. It's that simple, because of me.
There's not much of a band without you, though.
Oh, yeah. Actually, the funny thing is we actually did a tour. Beauty Pill did a tour without me when I was in the hospital once. They did a tour opening for Arta Lindsay, actually. And they played, I was very jealous. They played all sorts of really beautiful art houses. The Chicago Institute of Art, we played in all these really beautiful halls. I say we, but I was not there. I experienced it vicariously.
Were you planning on going, and then the hospital thing?
We had been planning on going, and unfortunately, I had a medical emergency, and the band decided to go forth without me. Gene Cook, who sings half of the songs, sang all of the songs. The nature of Beauty Pill is that we've always wanted the songs to be able to leap from throat to throat. That's an actual concept. The idea is that the songs are sort of androgynous, or I was going to say bisexual. That's not the right word. The songs have no gender assigned necessarily, and that I can sing a song that Jean sings on the record. I can sing it live. She can, it can go back and forth.
Why is that an important quality?
I just think it's fucking dope. I mean, I don't know why other two sing. I mean, there is no version of the Beatles Yesterday that is sung by John Lennon. It's always sung by Paul. Why couldn't it have been sung by John? That could have been cool. I mean, wouldn't you be curious to hear what...
I would hazard to guess that was an ego thing more than anything. I mean, other than
okay, fair enough.
Other than giving Ringo the occasional song, they sang their own songs.
Yeah, maybe they were territorial. Maybe that's the way. I mean, I'm not territorial in that way. There are plenty of two-singer, Tribe Called Quest was a two-singer band. I don't know why people, and Fugazi, I don't know why people can't, why those things can't become fluid. It's just an exciting idea to me. It's something that Beauty Pill has never really mastered, but it's a concept that we've always operated on.
You find the best tool for the job, right? So it's nice having the option of doing that. And if somebody is more suited for whatever reason, or the song just sounds better in a different register, then you go with that.
Yes. I will say this is going to sound nakedly promotional because it sort of is. We are about to reissue Beauty Pill Describes Things as They Are, which is our 2015 record. It's, I think, I'm going to say, inarguably the strongest Beauty Pill album. I think it's the record that it's the record that we're hoping to top this summer. It's the motherfucker.
That's where the bar is for you.
Yes. And we're reissuing it because we got the rights back, and that's a whole other story, which I won't get into. We have the rights back to that record, and we're reissuing it for Record Store Day next Friday, as at the time of this recording, April 22nd. At the end of that record, there's a song called "And the Word," which is, and the last song on the record is called "And the Word." It's a cover of a Lungfish song, a kind of oblique, sort of hallucinatory, kind of apocalyptic Lungfish song. The words, the song ends with the line repeated, "The world vanished in a gentle breeze." Just that's the last lyric is just repeated over and over again. The world vanished in a gentle breeze. 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 The world. Anyway, there's a version of that song. We did two versions of that song. That I sing, that's largely electronic and kind of based on sort of hip-hop mechanics. The world vanished in a gentle breeze. In its own way, sort of way. And there's a version that Gene Cook sang, which is entirely organic, entirely the band playing in live instruments, actually in a basement at the time. It's very beautiful. It's very pretty. It's sort of folky and kind of dreamy and pleasant to listen to. The world vanished in a gentle breeze. The world vanished in a gentle breeze. The version that I sing is not, I would say, is not pleasant. It's I mean, I don't think it's actively unpleasant, but it's aggressive, I guess. Gene's version is more softer and sweeter and easier to listen to, and it's a prettier version. Yes. At the last minute, as we're putting the record together, our plan had been to include both versions, but I think we decided that was too much for the record at the time. And so we decided to do this strategy of a mysterious edit. And so on the version of the record that was released in 2015, you hear my version, and then it crossfades, sort of mysteriously crossfades into Jean's version for only about 30 seconds. And you hear her version for really just a few moments, and then it fades out. That was the version that we released in 2015. Beauty Pill fans have always been curious about what the fuck that was all about. So on the reissue, you get to hear Jean's full version, which I actually prefer to the version that I sing. I really don't think I do. Maybe I do. I don't think I have an ego about singing. I don't have a desire to, I don't have an attention kind of, I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'4", and I think a lot of the great rock stars, like Prince, a lot of the people who were really, really good at holding audience's attention, and that's a whole art. I'm not in any way disparaging that art. It's Miles Davis, I looked it up earlier today, was 5'7". A lot of the great performers, a lot of the people who were magnetic and charismatic. Iggy Pop, I don't know how tall Iggy Pop is. I think he's not a tall guy. I think a lot of the great performers are often people who grew up kind of making an art of getting attention. I think I don't know. This is my speculation about myself. I don't have a strong desire to be the center of attention. I have more of a Wizard of Oz kind of wizard behind the curtain kind of fantasy.
That's funny because I'm now trying to think of like tall rock stars. I had, years ago when I used to do all these in person, I had Bruce Hornsby on the show. Bruce Hornsby's very tall. In fact, he has a nephew, maybe. I may be confusing him with Mike Love, Kevin Love, but he had one of his relatives, maybe his son, one of his relatives plays basketball. He's very tall, and that's interesting because like he's a guy that sits behind the piano, so you don't know that he's tall. And I wonder if that plays into it.
I mean, there are tall rock stars. There are, like, Sting is tall. I think Mick Jagger is tall. There are tall. It's not unheard of. I just think I'm only speculating about my own. I don't really have. I just don't have a. I don't really. My ego is not attached to being the. Now in the band now, Aaron Nelson is the co-singer in the band, and I'm really happy for people to pay attention to her. And I don't have a. I think I would be totally fine, not singing at all.
And yet your version of the song is the version that made it onto the record.
Yes, it was a vote, actually. It was a band vote. Everybody decided it was the strongest move. It's a strike. My version is striking. It's, it's a cool record, I don't regret the choice that we made. But I think it's cool to give people an insight into the kind of path not taken on this reissue.
I wonder because I think that's a genius idea, and it works really well because it's a glimpse at something, that maybe you don't even know that there's an entire other version when you're listening to it. But I wonder if the power is in the mystery, and if the power is in knowing that you might not ever hear it. You're thinking like an artist. That's exactly
the fucking question. You got it right there. That's 100% the question. We talked about that. Like, is it kind of cooler that it's a thing that was sort of obscured from view? Like, there is a kind of a mysterious chemistry to the way the album worked. I would say, as I said, like I consider Beauty Pill Describes Things as They Are to be the high watermark for our band. So that's a valid question. I don't know. I think there's something cool about revealing it, 8 years later. I mean, I think but yeah, but that your question is totally valid. It's a really good question artistically. The other shape that I had voted for the other shape, which was that you hear 3/4 of Gene's version, and then for 30 seconds you hear me ranting, and she's singing in this sort of kind of lullaby-ish sort of way, and that you at the last 30 seconds you hear the Chad version, which is sort of deranged.
That's interesting, because I wonder if that would work, because I'm thinking of a lot of hip hop songs, right? Which like a lot of, the verses will be very intense, and then the hook or the chorus is just really mellow music, and that works really well. And I'm is there a version that kind of flips that on its head?
That's a good question. That is a good question.
Because, obviously you tend to think of choruses as being, the kind of the melodic part, or the musical part.
I'm thinking of, again, I'm like a Tribe Called Quest fanatic. There's the Tribe Called Quest song.
Well, to be fair, Tribe Called Quest's rapping was very melodic and musical in a way that a lot of others weren't.
Yes. These are all astute observations. They're very impressive. Yes. It's I don't know. I mean, I thought it was cool. I got outvoted. That's the way it goes. I have a strong vote in Beauty Pill because I write the music. But I don't, it's not a sort of like what Chad says goes. And it was actually,
but they probably understand that you're so humble that you would vote against yourself, maybe not even on merit.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I identify as humble.
Humble is maybe the wrong word, but magnanimous is maybe the word I'm thinking of.
I mean, I appreciate the idea. I mean, it would be something that's a good trait to have. But I'm also the guy that just said, we made a masterpiece.
Listen, I'm speaking very specifically in terms of singing.
Yes. No, I think that and I think that they really wanted to make a really strong record. And that's all they really cared about. I think that's all we all really cared about. And that's kind of a beautiful thing about the people I work with. It's very oriented. I mean, it's interesting because one of the things that went wrong in my life is that I didn't understand. I've talked about this in other interviews. I did not understand that the record is as good as it is. I didn't understand at the time. I thought it was a good record. I mean, I was happy with it. I did not understand its value. I didn't understand. I have more appreciation. I have more recognition of the scale of it as a artistic thing. Now that I have some distance.
You were too close to it.
I was too close to it, and I thought it was just okay. I thought it was a good record, but I didn't think it was I didn't. And my bandmates were like, "Holy shit, this is this is maybe one of the best albums anyone's ever made." They were really euphoric about it. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but everybody was really the hyperbole was at a very high level.
They at least knew that it was the best album that you had ever made.
Yes, they did. They did know that, and they cautioned about what to do with it because of that. And I just thought they were. I thought they were. I don't know. I thought they were high. I thought they were. I don't know. I thought I was like, guys, it's a good record, but we're an obscure DC band. It's just it'll sell a couple thousand copies. It'll be all right. I didn't have this major we're gonna be Radiohead kind of crazy ambition. I think I thought it was a good record, and I wanted to make it available to the people that would find it. So we actually ended up licensing it to this guy. His name is Alan Formello, who we later learned was a total maniac. And and we ended up in an unfortunate contractual relationship with him for many years that took us a long time to get out of. And that's actually one of the reasons why this reissue is a celebratory thing for me, is that I own the work now. Like, I have control over it, and I can give it the kind of dignity that it deserves.
We talked earlier on a very pragmatic level about the way in which, and I'm sorry, we're going to, because we're getting close to an hour, but I'm going to end, maybe a little morbidly, but hopeful at the same time, that the pragmatic way in which your health impacted the direction of the band as far as like moving from guitar to synthesizer. But there's no way going through something like that is not going to have a profound work on your lyrics, on the kind of music that you want to create. Yes. I mean, I take it very, 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 very seriously, and I don't apologize for that. And it's really important to me that all the sounds have purpose. I don't know how long I'm going to be here, and I can't fuck around. And I mean, this is a kind of a brief for the next Beauty Pill record, which we're planning to do this summer. Like, everything, our music is packed with a lot of sounds and textures, and people that like the band are pretty excited by that stuff. And we're thought of as being a band that's, quote, well produced, unquote. I'm happy about that reputation to some extent, but I don't like the idea of it being production. I think that everything that we do has a reason. I can defend almost any sound in any Beauty Pill song. I can explain why it's there and what role it's supposed to play. There's an intentionality behind what we're doing that I think is anchored by mortality. Actually, I never said that before. I've never said that before. It's kind of heavy hitting me. What I will say, and I don't know if this will make you feel better, but something that I've noticed is that a lot of art is a surprising amount. I have a lot of cartoonists on the show, people who make comics, and the process of making a comic is like a book, 4 years at least, right? And these are people, men and women who are in the prime of their life. They're like in their 40s, right? They're not old, but they still quantify the remainder of their life by the amount of books that they have left. There's a base level of that goes on, but yours is obviously heightened for unfortunate reasons. Yeah. Yep. That's my situation. I mean, I feel that probably Beauty Pill listeners probably sense this stuff too. I think that there's I can tell by the way that people interact with us, the letters that we get, people don't want to, there's things that people don't want to say, directly, like, so you're probably going to die. All probably going to die, dude. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like I think there's a gravity. I think there are people who find this music take it pretty seriously and center it in their lives. I think that's a good thing. You have this thing, obviously, again, it's a case where, you, given the option, you wouldn't want it to go through this, but you have this thing. I was thinking about this recently. The cartoonist Al Jaffe, from Mad Magazine. So he died recently, right? Yes, it's very sad. As of the recording to this. Well, yeah, I mean, it is, but also, he was 102, right? So, like, yes. That's about being lucid at 102 is the best any of us could possibly hope for. Yes. But I was thinking about that in the context of him having his 102nd birthday, like a month before that happened, and people celebrating it. And we know that we all lead busy lives. We're all completely compartmentalized. And there's this horrible thing that happens where, in a lot of cases, in all cases, we take artists for granted. We take, music for granted. And then that person dies, and then, we celebrate them, and they're not there to appreciate that. And one, like, I don't want to say positive note because it's a horrible thing, but like, one thing that this has perhaps afforded you and your fans is like that they have this connection and that they have this appreciation that they might, in an intensity they might not otherwise have.
I think that's a terrific way of viewing it, and I do think that's an underlying vibe under the communications that we have directly with people who are listeners. I don't like the word. I've never liked the word fan, because it's kind of based in the word fanatic. But I think the word listener is a little bit more, I don't know, something more dignified about it. I've always liked that word. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think there's a richness to the relationship, which is informed by the finity of it.
You didn't use the word lucky. I think you used the word fortunate to describe, your doctor telling you to go to the hospital, for instance, like the people who literally saved your life. I did read an interview where you used the word lucky, and it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, on the micro level, lucky for sure. Macro level, it's a very unlucky situation more broadly. Yeah. But I appreciate that outlook, and I asked this question as somebody who, I'm really bad at this. I went through a kind of a minor-ish health thing at the beginning of the pandemic, nothing close to what you've dealt with for years now. But I'm bad at not wallowing in things. I'm bad at not spiraling. I'm bad at not, I get really depressed, and it's a.
I do too, man. I do too. I don't like this idea that people, begin to see me as this sort of hero figure who's unassailably cheerful.
You're not paralyzed by the fear, or
no, I'm not.
And that's probably something, I don't know. Is that something that you have to develop over time?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel galvanized. I feel really appreciative. I feel really appreciative of. I mean, I'm working on music that I'm really, really fucking excited about right now, and as I said, the horn, everything about this what I'm planning for this summer is really exciting to me, and I don't know. I do feel lucky. I feel like, I don't know. I'm as much as it can be torturous to have, to kind of have to obey visions. It's cool to have visions, and not everybody does, I do feel lucky. I mean, the word lucky is used. There's a song, which is called Near Miss Stories. And it's, towards the end of, Beautiful describes things as they are. And it ends with me just saying, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. And at some point, the lyric transmutes to "You're so lucky." So I start speaking directly to the listener in a way that might be a little bit corny, but I really do want to. I did want to have this idea of communicating an idea to the listener, please come away from this song with something. Recognize how fortunate you are to even breathe the air. I mean, it's springtime. I don't, who knows how long the earth is going to last, go out and breathe the air, I mean, I don't, it seems like a really valid, if a valid message,
As you had said earlier, you come from this DC punk scene, and as far as adherence to punk ethos, maybe nobody better in the world than Ian MacKaye, right? I mean, he lives it, he walks the walk. I'm not saying this about him, but I do think more broadly that one of these sort of unfortunate side effects of really wanting to be punk is not embrace. You said corny, but almost this fear of embracing something genuine, for fear that you'll look corny. And I honestly, maybe this is just me getting older, I don't know, but I honestly really appreciate people who can be completely earnest, even if it does mean potentially looking a bit cheesy.
I don't. I don't think that that earnestness is anything that anybody really ascribes to Beauty Pill. But there are those moments where, we break the fourth wall and do something, which is sort of, it runs the risk of being corny. I mean, turning to the listener and looking directly in the camera and talking to you, that could really, it's like a Bono sort of, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that I don't mean to diss Bono, but
and it was corny. God bless him, but Bono's a corny guy.
But that's part of his art he's not afraid of going there. And it's part of what actually I think will make that music last for a very long time is because that it is touching and that he's a ham, but he can really communicate something that people respond to all around the world. And maybe for a very long time. So I'm that being said, he's a cornball. I don't want to be like that. But I don't have time. I don't have time to like play games. I'm Beauty Pill lyrics are packed with illusions and, let's take an opposite sort of song, the song that opens the album, which is called Drapetomania. What is that song about? I ask anybody. It's pretty abstract. And it's probably difficult for people to discern what is being said. I sometimes puzzle through what is being said with that song. But I'm never interested in being obscure on purpose ever, ever, ever. I am not interested in being chin scratch sort of, I don't want to be admired for being smart. I want to do shit that registers in your, I'm going to use the word soul. I'm not interested in being clever. And I think there's plenty of clever shit in what we do, but that's never the point.
I think a really important part of getting older, if you're smart, is examining some of the potentially arbitrary stances that you took earlier in life and the things that you didn't do because you were afraid that they weren't punk enough. Obviously there's a lot of upside, to punk and I don't think that by any stretch of imagination, it's a bad place to go through life. But I also, I'm going to like do a little therapy talk right now, but in cognitive behavioral therapy, they have this concept of core beliefs. Mm-hmm. And a core belief is something that you hold really true, but perhaps have never really examined. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a really important part of getting older and maturing is figuring out why you do the things you do and whether or not you need to move on from them.
Yep. I think that's very well said. And I agree. And I don't really believe, I'll tell you one area that I don't like. I've sort of decided something I noticed, like about hip hop historically, is founded on boasting.
Braggadocious.
Yes. In a way, Kanye's, personality went to an absolutely insane, megalomaniacal, like bizarre,
logical conclusion.
Maybe, but I certainly think what Kanye became very ugly.
Yeah.
And I don't admire that at all. And fuck that guy, basically.
You can't excuse away anti-Semitism. That's just.
Then that's like just a piece of it, Yes, but indie rock has always had this sort of diffidence, which is this opposite kind of humility. If you think about the way Kurt Cobain carried himself, amongst many others, it's valued humility, or prized humility, I guess. And I feel like that is reflective to some extent of privilege. I think that there's a reason why people who come from nothing, from the streets, have to beat their chest and say, I'm the best. There's a reason why that principle is at work. It's and there's a desire to overcome the world you came from and to rise to the top. And you can't be, there's no time to apologize for it. And there's no time to feign humility, and I think the indie rock thing often comes from, I think, from privilege, like this sort of like, and again, the default stance of humility, I think, this is again, like examine your beliefs kind of thing. Everyone would agree that humility as a it's certainly the founding principle of like, of religion and of, certainly of Christianity, that, you should have humility. It's the founding, we all admire movie stars who are, I'm going to pick Tom Hanks, picking a big mainstream example, someone people love because he seems so down to earth, despite the fact that he's this billionaire movie star. I guess what I'm trying to say is I have lately kind of been moving more towards this idea. I started doing this on stage. My band hates it, actually. I started, it's a joke. If this is a joke that I started telling on stage, we would start a song, or we would, I would look down at a song on the set list, and I would say, this next song is a very good song. And like my bandmate Drew, who's the guitarist, like absolutely hates this. He just it's like kills him every time I do it. I just think there's just something really funny about telling people the song is good before they even hear it. And as if you get to tell them, as if you get to tell an audience, this song that you're about to hear is a good song. It's fundamentally absurd. So there's a like play on the idea of humility and of boasting and all this stuff.
It is, but I've literally seen bands that have like apologized for songs on stage. So
it's the worst. That shit is the worst, man. I'm not into that. And as I've been listening to, I watched a documentary, which I think everybody should watch, of Miles Davis. It's on Netflix. There are lots of documentaries about Miles Davis. They're all pretty good, and they mostly give you this sense of the shape of his personality. He is an asshole. He was an asshole.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He and sometimes was an actively bad guy, actively abusive, actively nasty. But there's no denying that dude changed music 5 times in his lifetime. Like, you can measure watershed moments where he does something so astonishing that the whole culture has to respond to it. Genius on a level none of us can touch. And he fucking knew it. He would tell you. It's in some ways a template for Kanye in a way. He was very much, Miles Davis was a very big Miles Davis fan. And I'm questioning this axis of where I want to land on this stuff, because I really want to do great stuff. I don't have time to mess around, as we've established earlier. And so I don't have time to the next Beauty Pool record, I want to be great. I will say that. And now that I recognize that we can do something great, having done this record that we're reissuing, I'm aiming high. So I'm not afraid to say that. And I think the work will benefit.